Well, Simon, in the 17 episodes we've done so far of the Rhinestone podcast, we have not interviewed a drummer yet. And I'm so happy that we get to interview you at number one for our drums because you're someone I love. And it's so fun going through your discography of records you've been on. And I just realized like how many classic records that you've been on that I had no idea that you were on. And I am really interested because I play guitar mostly and when I play guitar, I'm always thinking in terms of how am I interlocking with the drums. And for me, it's always about trying to keep up with the snare, keep up with the bass drum, and try to match the energy that the drummer is doing. And so, what I'm curious about for you is what are some of the more important elements to you when you are getting a drum mix, whether that's live or in the studio? Is there certain things you're looking for? Are you looking to interlock with the bass, the singer? How does it work for you when you're thinking of a drum mix?
When you say a drum mix, do you mean mixing a track with all the instruments, or do you mean recording the drums?
Well, I we can go either way. So I mean, as far as when you're, let's say live, let's go live first. When you're going live, what are you listening for? Is there musts that you have to have when you are getting a drum mix? So let's say you're playing, an arena or you're playing a club or something like that. When you get the drum mix, or what are the must haves for you in that regard?
The most important thing is to be able to hear the other people on the stage. And the next, well, together with that, to hear them in time. So, uh, when you play a very large stage, let's say, I don't know, 60 feet wide stage, um, and people are positioned quite far away from you, you've got two problems. One, can you hear them? And also, you're most likely going to be hearing them a little bit late. So, if you imagine sound travels very slowly, and it depends on the thickness of the air. Um, you're about a millisecond per foot. So if somebody is rough figures, it's not exact. If somebody's 20 feet away from you, and you can hear them because they're playing through, a large guitar, speaker cabinet, and amplifier, um, you are actually probably going to hear them 20 milliseconds late. And then you've got the confusing one, which is you're hearing them bouncing off the walls, and then if the PA's on, you're hearing the PA being reflected off the back wall, which is going to be much much later than that. So it's actually cacophonous, the sound. So, and that's why stage monitors were invented, and that's why we use stage monitors, because we want to hear the precise time that somebody is playing. That's very, very important. So um, that would be my first requirement. I have mixed my own monitors since 1984. I got tired of basically trying to play and twisting around to try and find my drum tech or roadie in those days, to ask him to turn down the guitar or turn up the keyboards or something, and then he has to walk from behind the drums all the way to stage left or stage right, where depending where the monitor desk is, and tell the guy, "Oh, less keyboards, more keyboards in the drum monitors." And then by the time he's actually done that, I played for 24 bars with excruciating Moog synthesizer solo going on, trying to keep out of the way of the monitors. It just drove me nuts. And working with Mike Oldfield, he had designed a monitor system where each musician had a little box of 10 faders, and they could control their own monitors. It was a wonderful system. I'd never seen it before. And we're talking about 1983, by the way. This is groundbreaking. Nobody was doing that back then, as far as I know, because anything that would do that would have to be custom built. Um, that when we started playing live with Mike, that was the first time I'd experienced that. I went, wow, this is great, wonderful. One fader drums, one fader bass, guitar one, guitar two, keyboards. I mean, it was a wonderful scenario. So, being fairly technically minded, and with all this equipment, I figured out a way of being able to do this every time I played, and I've been doing it ever since. So if I'm playing, somebody's too loud, I can just go blink like that, and it's done. Absolutely wonderful. Um, so that's a very important thing for me, is to have control over the stage level. I can't move. A drummer cannot move. You're stuck. If something's blaring away at you, you're getting hit. Anybody else on stage, apart from maybe the keyboard player, he's a little bit stuck too. You can walk away from your monitor if it's too loud, and then scream at the monitor guy. You could even go up to him, especially if you're wireless too. Um, but for drummers, it's a little different. So the first requirement is to be able to hear everybody, and the people that you can't hear, I want to put them in my monitors. Uh,
What do you mean by that? The people you can't hear? Like, give me an example of that.
well, if there's a singer, a background singer who's 20 feet away from you or up on a riser behind you, you're not going to hear them. Not at a stage level approaching 100 decibels. No, you're not going to hear them. The back of the PA, just even the background noise of the PA is going to be around 90 decibels. That's just a cacophony, just right. So you've got to get above that, and this is where you have to be very, very careful too. Um, with the Who, Roger Daltrey's monitors, which were flown in the rigging above the light rigging, two huge monitors on stage, 103 decibels. It was
Gosh,
stunning,
that's so
absolutely stunning.
loud.
Oh yeah. Now, of course, that means speakers are very, very directional. So you would have to stand in that spot, and your dB meter would do that. As soon as you stand away, it's going to decrease a little bit. Um, so you got to be careful. So that was another reason for doing my own monitors, was to have control. If everything started getting too loud and crazy, I could grab those faders, the master faders, and pull them down. At least get rid of my noise, the noise that's going on. If it was really bad, um, and you just keep playing. I mean, that's like in case of emergency, break glass. In case of emergency, pull the master faders down. It's also very interesting, which I do sometimes. Um, if it's I want to hear really what's going on without monitors. So sometimes I just pull the faders down. I'm okay, that's interesting, and then I'll push the faders back up, and obviously when I can get a moment to do it, if I'm playing. um it's yeah, it takes a lot of uh sorting out to play live, and from a sonic point of view, um and your brain has to get used to the sound in order to translate it. And the way I can how many times have you been to a concert where the band comes on and it starts, and the first couple of songs are like, and you say, somebody asks you after the show, so what was the sound like? Well, but yeah, by about the third song, it was really good.
Yeah, dozens of times, dozens of times.
Right? It was not the case at all. It was great from the start. The problem was your brain. You are still trying to figure out what the hell's going on, because you're 50 feet in front of the PA, which means you're right, usually in a big place. Typically, the console, front of house console, would be 100 feet away from the PA. So now, which means he's hearing it 100 milliseconds late. And if you've got delay towers, oh boy, then it gets very confusing. So the brain, you've maybe you saw the warm up band, or if there wasn't a support act, you're going in cold into this arena which has all sorts of ridiculous acoustics going on. No wonder it doesn't sound great for the first two or three songs. But we did a sound check, and we have hopefully a really good not only sound engineer but systems engineer. And on a big PA system, you have a systems engineer. He's the guy that actually calibrates and sets up the PA to make sure that it sounds good in this room. So no, we've done our job. We're sounding fine from the beginning. It's your brain as the audience has to adapt to what's going on, and it figures it out very quickly. We have the same situation on stage, by the way, and I think this is was really explained to me in during the Who tour in '89. Most of the concerts we played were outdoor stadiums, ranging from around 60,000 at Giants in New York to 74,000 in Boston, to like 83,000, I think, at Dodgers. No, at in Los Angeles.
The
Uh,
Angels Stadium,
the what?
Angels Stadium.
It was, oh gosh, I can't remember because I'm not, not from the States. I don't know all my football teams, But anyway, the big stadium in California, whatever, in Los Angeles, it's about 80,000, I think. Obviously, it depends how you set up and where you put the stage, But I think our show there was about 80. So the first few shows is like, wow, you really have to get used to the kind of sound because. In a way, it's actually very dry on stage because it's open air. Okay, you'll have a cover which will reflect some sound, but compared to playing indoors, it's actually there's less irregularities, there's less uh, uh, um, um, sound bouncing off surfaces. But what you have is because it's a big place, you've got delay towers, and you hear the reflection from the back bleachers coming back to stage. And I joke that it's a bit like everything you play sounds like a shuffle because when you're playing boom, ba, you're hearing boom, ch, ba, ch, boom, ch, ba. It's so weird. And you have to get used to that. Even if you've got 60, 70,000 people there, you're still going to hear that because you've got a set of loud PA speakers halfway down the stadium. So the people at the back can hear, and also that it's their time specially. So at least you're hearing, kind of in sync. I mean, obviously we're going like, and then you're hearing, but. That's the time delay. It's amazing. That's why when you watch a video, when you watch, okay, analog video back in those days when we had cameras and a projector, we didn't have before we had the big Trinitron digital screens, it was pretty much instant, which means at the back, you'll see the drummer playing, but you're hearing, boom, boom, boom. It's, the sound's delayed, right? Now, with digital, of course, there's latency, and especially with screens. So if you're in the front row and you look up at the screen, it's late. So when I'm on stage and playing, I look up one of the screens if I can see it. If it's behind me a little bit, I can't watch it because I've already done that. And then I see my hands do that. I go, whoa, can't play to that.
It's
So
like
it's very complex. But I would say it takes maybe 2 gigs, 3 gigs, and then it becomes normal. And it's a bit like playing just a normal venue. You don't notice the size anymore because your brain has had now a chance to adapt. Then we went indoors. I think it was Cobo Hall in Detroit. Oh my God, it was the most horrific sound because we weren't used to all the complex reflections coming off the building. I mean, it was almost impossible to play. It was so confusing. I remember Roger was going, God, it sounds awful in here. And no, it didn't sound awful in there. Had we been playing arenas indoors for the whole tour, it would have sounded normal. Do you see what I mean? The brain has to adapt. That's exactly what it is. And that's maybe the difficult thing about playing live. And you know what? It's the same in a small jazz club too. It's so dry and things sound small and you've got to try to kind of get over that and that just takes experience. So they're the problems that you're up against. But again, the most important thing is to try to get a good balance of all the musicians on stage, and so you can all play together, because groove is the most important thing. Time and groove. You want to go and see a band that feels really good.